Hello, one and all. Jasper here, joined with DJ Fella, and tonight we're actually mixing things up a little bit. You see, Arcane Season 2 will be coming out here directly this year, and me and DJ were getting tired of talking about the shit show Hot D, and even though my channel focuses on Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin, and all that stuff, we thought, what the hell? Why don't we talk about the first season of Arcane and just how fucking good it is?
It's exciting. It's exciting to finally be talking about something that I know isn't going to disappoint me episode after episode.
And sometimes hate is fun. Sometimes being angry is fun. Talking about why you hate something can be enjoyable. But you gotta make sure to mix it up and talk about good quality content every once in a while.
For sure. For sure.
Now, me and you have both already watched this, the entire season when it first came out. And now in this podcast, we're like the Hot D series. We're going to be going through episode by episode, just talking about our thoughts. And hopefully, I think we timed it out perfectly. After we talk about the final episode, the next season will be airing, and we'll be able to cover it episode by episode.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's maybe going to be a 1 week break in between or something, which honestly is probably perfect.
Anyways, so for those of you who do not know, Arcane is based off the video game series or franchise, however you want to call it, League of Legends, which is infamous in just how terrible it is, depending on who you ask. And I have to say, video game adaptations don't have the best of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Reputations?
Yeah. It's not exactly great. Even the really good ones have not been amazing by any stretch of the imagination. Arcane not only is, in my opinion, the best video game adaptation, like from video game to show or even movie, but it's just a fantastic show in its own right.
Yeah, I know nothing about League of Legends. Like, not a single thing. I mean, I know how toxic the community is. That's about all I know. And I love Arcane. Like, it does a fantastic job of bringing the world building to viewers who don't have any foundation to begin with.
Yeah, neither one of us. Like, I have, of course, heard of League of Legends, but I don't know League of Legends. And you don't need to come into this show with this secondhand knowledge. It's a great introduction to the world that's created. You don't really ever have a moment where you're lost in it. But that's getting more into the whole grand scheme of the series as a whole. How about we start focusing on the episode itself?
Yes, sir.
Now, like any good season, we start off with, tragedy. We have what will be told to us later, the enforcers, pretty much just gunning people down in this war between these two factions. And we see our two main characters, Vi and, well, I know she's going to be Jinx, but I think her name is Puff?
Powder,
thank you. And
yeah,
the art, that I don't know how to describe the animation. It's like, it's 3D generated, I assume, but there's like this flatness to it in a good way, if that makes sense. And it really is beautiful to look at.
Yeah, it took a long time for CG animation to get there, because like for most of its existence, it's been either like Toy Story animation, where it just kind of looks plastic and bad after a couple of years, or they've been trying to like go super hyper realistic with it. Like if you look at most Pixar and stuff, like they've kind of developed a style over time, but it's like the main thing they're going for is like, how many hairs can we put on this cat that we're animating? And so to finally see some studios that are doing 3D animation, but then they're doing 2D with the 3D, and they're really finally using it to make just beautiful art rather than just as like a technological experiment.
Mhm.
And it shows. Like, the Arcane's doesn't just look good for a show that's come out recently. It's gonna look good decades from now. People are gonna be able to watch this and go, this is a good looking show. It's not gonna age.
And that's the whole thing with, that's with more artistic styles like this, rather than going for like a super realistic look. Realism, as technology advances, is going to inevitably look bad. Whereas you can go back and play, like, for example, the old Mario games, and it still feels like it still kind of looks good in a way because of the more cartoony Forever Time style.
For sure. And I mean, the other great example is good, like some really well done 2D animation from like the 80s. It's like it's stylized, like you can tell what era it comes from, but it still looks gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fantastic. And also, let's talk about like this opening scene. It's like, what, a minute and a half? Somewhere around there. And it just tells us so much about the world. It tells us about, obviously, this massive conflict that's going around. We're introduced to our main protagonists of Vi and Puff.
Powder.
Thank you. I'm going to need your help a lot with that. Vi and Powder. We're also introduced to their new father figure who adopts them, Vander. We see that they lost their parents because of this conflict. It's just so much. It's just really compact, but not overflowing storytelling. And it's showing us. Not a single word is said throughout this entire scene.
There is the singing, which kind of is just kind of, I guess, driving home what the main theme of the show is going to be. Like, and putting that right at the start, like it's just a little girl singing. Maybe the first time you watch it, like, you can kind of get that there's some sort of class warfare dynamics going on in probably the scene you're watching. But I mean, once you really like watch the whole show, you're like, okay, that's the central conflict. And yeah, it's they do such a fantastic job of introducing so much in so little time.
Mm-hmm. And it hooks you, it grabs you. And we also get a moment that I really like where Vander just drops his gauntlets and takes the girls away. Yep. It's just like, that's his moment where we can, like, even though we don't know how he was previously, we can see he's now come to realize that all this violence is so pointless because of what it's costing.
Yeah. And it's such a fantastic example of, like, well-ordered masculinity. Like he's clearly capable of being violent and dangerous, but he also knows when to set that aside and protect.
Yeah, you gotta show a little bit of love and a little bit of care. More, like, it's okay to go into the violence to keep that safe. But when going into the violence risks its destruction, then what's the point?
Yeah, and it's pretty rare nowadays to see like I guess positive representations of like masculinity. Mm-hmm. It's almost always, unless a woman's doing it, it's almost always shown to be a negative thing. So yeah, I love that. I love that moment where he drops the fucking gauntlets and picks up the girls.
It's beautiful. And now we get to the intro. And visually speaking, I really like it. How they're all like, I don't know if they're stone per se, but, marble or whatever, statues of the characters that we're going to be kind of introduced to. And kind of the moments that they kind of shatter to kind of show movement in a way. I think it's very, like, I'm not the most intelligent of people, so it's hard for me to really put into words how I feel about this, but I think it's very beautiful. I'm not the biggest fan of the music, though.
You don't like the music? You don't love, like, what's this song
Imagine
called?
Dragon?
Well, it's Imagine Dragons, which I if you want to talk shit about Imagine Dragons, I'll get behind you on that, But this song goes hard. Enemy, ooh. Especially the full version. I think the full version features Jid. Ooh, it's a banger.
You got a point there. I guess I'm letting a bit of my negative opinions on Imagine Dragon. I don't think they're bad. My issue has always been that I feel like every song they have is a bit too similar to one another.
That's fair.
So I think because I know it's Imagine Dragon, I've listened to some of their works before. A lot of it just kind of blends together. Had this been like an original work by Imagine Dragon, like a brand new song, I might be a bit more positive towards it. But since it's a song that I've already heard to before, just doesn't quite click with me. But I mean, that's probably...
Wait, the song wasn't made for Arcane?
I don't think so. I think it was made before Arcane.
Oh. I thought it was made for the show, but I never looked into it.
So Imagine Dragon anime. When did Arcane come out?
It came out a little bit ago.
So Arcane came out in 2021. Then again, anime came out. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe. So the song came out, it looks like in 2021. So I might be wrong. Maybe this is an original song and it's just the same as all their other work.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's probably as negative as I'm ever going to get throughout this entire show.
Yeah, and I don't even agree with it. I like that song. I bump it every now and then.
But we get a big time skip, and we are now with Vi and Powder with their two jabronis. You got Junkrat.
Jabronis?
Well, I'm trying to be hip with the crowd.
Whoa. When jabronis was never hip.
Anyways, they're with their two friends, Junkrat and the fat kid.
Why are you just calling him Junkrat because he looks like him?
Yeah, you cannot convince me it's not young Junkrat. It is the same character.
Well, he can't be young Junkrat, but I won't get into any spoilers.
But anyways, Clagger and Milo.
Oh, yeah, that is their names. I'm impressed you knew that.
Don't be. I have a list of all the characters.
Smart.
Maybe not all of them,
Smart.
but hopefully the ones that I'll be talking about. But anyways, we get, this fairly long, scene of these four getting into, obviously, where the wealthy are in this massive city to go and steal something of value. And go ahead.
And again, it's just every scene is so dense. There's so much world building, character development, and plot happening at all times in this show. Like the characters aren't speaking that much, but you're getting an idea for the world they live in. Obviously, you're seeing a part of the city that we didn't see before in the first scene. And we kind of saw it as it panned away. And then we're getting, just them jumping from roof to roof, like the way they go about it, how Milo kind of like he follows Vi, but acts kind of cocky and smug about it. And then Clagger just jumps straight across. It's just so good.
Yeah, and that's probably, I think, the strongest part of this scene. All of that stuff is good, but it's specifically the character and us being introduced to this group, and just how in this one scene we kind of not figure them out per se, but have a strong understanding just what they are. Vi is obviously the leader of the group who kind of takes charge and makes the decisions. Puffer, she's the new one. This is kind of her first outing, so she's not quite as skilled as the other two. Milo, like you said, he's kind of the cocky one. He thinks he's probably a lot better than he actually is, not to discredit his skill, but, he has a high opinion of himself. And Clagger, or however you pronounce his name, is just a very humble guy who, I get kind of very introverted sides from him, but he's he's very skilled in his own way. I think he's honestly probably the most competent of the four.
Yeah, he's certainly, I mean, at least I would say comparable to Vi. Like he carries his own weight throughout the entire little heist they pull here.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is the problem. When something's good, I can drag things out when we're talking about something bad, but when we're talking about something good, all I can say is just, yup, this is really nice. And
this is really nice.
And again, I think what makes this also a really good, second scene compared to the first is just the stark difference. And then it even happens again, we have the very first scene of the kind of war-torn area at the bridge. Then we get the time skip, and now we're here in obviously a very clean, pristine, nice-looking city. And then after they go through all this, we get to where they live, which is just, the slums and just the bottom of the barrel in society. And so it's a very good juxtaposition of point A, point B, point C.
For sure. You do kind of see it's kind of the trinity of relationship where you see, the upper city, the lower city, and then also the relationship in the bridge that connects them. And you see that relationship through the lens of conflict exclusively in that first scene. So it's honestly just again, I'm going to say this probably nonstop the whole time, but it's just so well done.
And also, even when they're just kind of stealing things, it kind of gives us a little more about them as well, specifically Puffer, as and it's kind
Powder.
of thank you, Powder. It's just a small little joke scene, but the Milo pulls out, the nose trimmers, and she's the one who actually identifies it, showing that she has a bit more knowledge than the others in tinkering and gadgets and whatnot.
For sure. And it's also, I think, of note that Powder is the one that kind of goes off away from the others while she's looking for loot to steal. It just kind of shows how she's a part of the group, but she's separate. She's still a little bit of an alien element in the mix here. And, I mean, it's just a fantastic little symbolism in every scene. I love it.
God, it's just beautiful in so many ways. But now I feel like we've been getting far, far, far too positive. So I'm going to be and you might be able to immediately throw this out when I say it. But once it seems like somebody's about to get in and they have to hastily make their escape, well, we get a little bit of a whoopsie daisy as Powder accidentally drops one of the blue crystals that she's come across. And my thoughts on it is that if it's going to explode, it seems like the most likely time it would have is right when she drops it and it hits the floor versus dropping it, hitting the floor, then kind of bouncing and rolling towards the wall, only to finally explode once it hits the wall at presumably a much softer force than when it first collided with the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't know much about how the crystals work. It almost, the way it's animated to me, almost makes it seem like it's storing up the kinetic energy of every impact as it's kind of rolling along. And then, when it hits the wall finally, that's just, the final little bit of, I guess, jostling to make it explode. But yeah, I don't think we know enough about how those crystals work to say that they wouldn't act like this.
Either way, though, next we get a pretty great chase scene. You got I just said what they were, but the guards.
The enforcers.
Thank you. How can I forget that? The enforcers kind of chasing after them with some interesting gadgets. Don't know if I'm the biggest fan of the leg catchers that they yeet like baseballs. I'll be honest, I've never been the biggest fan of would you say that this is kind of steampunk?
Yes. Yeah. The Piltover is super steampunk.
Yeah. I've never been the biggest fan of like steampunk, just because I always felt the technology and development just doesn't quite click with me.
Like aesthetically or like technically?
More so technically, like for example, the guys throwing the light catchers or the rappers or whatever.
The bolas.
Yeah, like these are obviously people who have developed like firearms and whatnot. Like I feel like technologically speaking, there are more effective ways and items that could be used in regards to subduing fleeing criminals.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could maybe argue that they're going with a less lethal option because they're kids.
Maybe, but I don't know. Again,
But I will say that it does seem like the kids have some pretty serious plot armor during this chase scene. Like the fact that these guards who presumably train some all miss their bola throws is, pretty lucky.
I mean, I don't know. Like, you've seen a couple of cops in your day and age. I'm guessing some of them don't exactly look like they're in any position to be able to outrun you. I've seen a couple of beer belly cops who I think I could probably get away from.
For sure, but they're getting chased by a substantial number of cops. Like they're not running away from one or two guys. They're getting chased by like a whole squad at least.
Maybe. But then again, I think one of the way they get away is like somewhat reasonable with the distractions and kind of like, for example, I think Vi at one point like knocks on a valve which explodes gas, which kind of lets them obstruct the chasers' views. Yeah,
and they like run and jump across the bridge as it's opening up to let a boat under and stuff like that. So they're not just running in a straight line or anything. But I would say like at the start is really the part that I have a problem with, where they are kind of just running in a straight line, and there's even enforcers that are ahead of them that just kind of throw a couple bolas and miss horribly.
I will say though, there's like one particular moment in this chase that I really like, and it's like they make a sharp turn down a path. This is like after they've like jumped the bridge. They make a sharp turn, right. And then as they're trying to make another turn towards a very narrow alley, all four of them, but more so Vi, Powder, and Clagor, they just kind of like run right into the wall and just kind of push themselves, bounce off, and like keep going. Like, and it's just kind of showed that they're not slowing down at all to make that turn. They're just hitting the wall and still going. And I don't know, there's just something in my brain that just makes me really like that one little moment. It adds to like the frantic and weight of everything.
For sure. And it has a really good impact to it. And also, that's exactly how I drive in racing games.
Just bounce off the walls?
Yeah, you just slam into the wall and then let it force you in the correct direction.
So now they eventually take a note out of Star Wars and slip down the garbage chute in order to get away from the enforcers.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks to that, they're now kind of more in their area. And they come across a bit of a rival gang. Would that be the best descriptor for these jackasses they come across?
Rival gang kind of undersells, I think, the significance of them as things move forward.
I don't know. They feel,
but
they feel like they're a small piece.
I would say rival gang.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, so they come across these guys, and obviously they can tell that they had a pretty decent haul, and they need they need their payment for their toll collectors, you could say, in a way.
Well, I guess they know that something's up because of the, commotion from up topside and the fact that they're carrying a big bag and all that. But Milo straight up tells them
Yeah,
that they gotta get tall.
you could say that. Speaking of which, though, what do you think it's reasonable for the news of the explosion arriving to this location before our group of four make it? It's because it seems like, it might take a bit more time, or like, I guess the news reaching, like, it's not like, as far as I'm aware, these people don't have Twitter or anything. So it's not like it's going to be like an instant thing.
Yeah, they have some like messaging kind of systems. Like you see, I don't know if it's in this episode, but you see that they have like chutes where they can send notes from place to place. And then also when they were running away up top, there were all like loud sirens going off. So I mean, it's definitely questionable, but I could see, like, if you were up top and you were already in the process of like heading down, then you might have heard the sirens going off and maybe told somebody. Also, they're currently in kind of like an in-between area, aren't they? Like it's pretty run down, but they're not
quite
down
in the
in
slums.
Undercity.
Mhm.
I mean, I would say these are definitely slums, but it's not the Undercity. So I don't know how far they are from the commotion they just made here.
Okay. But with that, inevitably, of course, a fight breaks out between the two. And I gotta say, it's a fun fight, and it's again giving us a lot more development on all four of them. You kind of have Milo, even though Puffer runs away, you have Milo, who's probably the most incompetent in regards to the fight. And then you have Vi and Clagger just doing all the heavy lifting. Specifically Clagger.
Yeah, Clagger for sure does. I mean, Vi is fighting like the leader, I guess. But Milo, to give him credit, like up till now, with how he was portrayed, I partially would have expected him to like run away or something. But he sticks in and fights, even if he is kind of getting his shit kicked in at times.
Mm-hmm.
And he also gets his licks in. It's not like he completely loses.
Yeah. And what's really great about this is Vi, everyone for the most part kind of takes their hits in, but it is nice, like, Vi isn't just dominating and kicking ass, There's some struggle with her in how this fight's going. She's not coming out unscarred or unscathed.
Yeah, I mean, the first, like, real scene in her quote-unquote fight is her getting punched in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Which all the slow-mo punches they're fun. That's fun stuff.
Yeah.
Especially that hammer fist from Milo, where like it shows how awkward his wristband is, and oh man,
I mean,
it's really well animated.
I think my favorite part is when Clagger like literally just picks one of the guys up and just yeets him at the other.
Yeah.
I will say though, something that kind of bugs me a little bit about this whole altercation is the end. As maybe I'm kind of reading it wrong, but I feel like after they've kind of won the fight, they should like kind of just start sprinting towards Puffer, because I'm assuming...
Powder.
Thank you, Powder. I'm assuming they know that she's being chased, right?
No, they don't. Because remember, they kind of gather themselves, and then it takes them a moment to even realize that she's missing.
Oh, you're right. She does say, "Where's Powder?" Okay. So I guess I kind of just... that part slipped from my mind.
Yeah, so they don't even realize that someone is chasing after her.
Gotcha.
Which I don't know. You got anything to say about Vi staring him down when he pulls a knife?
I think it's a little goofy, but
It's a little bit goofy.
it's a little bit goofy.
But it's not too goofy, I think, for a League of Legends show.
I mean, it's not something I would personally recommend, especially from someone who kind of, you beat up, but they gave you a rough, they gave you a good try throughout the entire fight. You're bruised, you're bleeding. Give him a knife and, it just goes south from there. I would say, though,
right.
Do you think this guy's like somewhat conflicted in killing or using the knife? Because you can't help but wonder, why doesn't he ever pull out the knife during the fisticuffs?
Yeah, I don't think that he's really, a killer at this point.
I don't know. I think in regards to like when Vi faces off with him, I always felt the reason why he didn't stab her wasn't so much like he doesn't want to stab her, but more so he feels like if he were to do it, then it would just end even worse for him. Because then Milo and Clagger could just beat the piss out of him.
Yeah, he was in a 3v1 situation at that point. So, yeah, I think a hasty retreat was probably the correct move there.
Anyways, Powder is running away from her pursuer, and she tries to get take the guy out with a fucking grenade with nails.
Which she almost escapes. Like the dude starts going the wrong way, and then she knocks over a board like a dumbass.
Yeah, but her immediate reaction, a lot of it makes sense. Once she realizes she cannot get away, she gets rid of the loot that they got. So now, at the very least, it can't be taken from her and the group, and these guys don't get it from them.
So I do think we should talk about the grenade a little bit, because having no knowledge of League of Legends or of magic in this world, what the hell are those things? Like what is she even trying to do? Because there's clearly something. She's harnessing some sort of magic there.
I don't think it's supposed to be magic. I think this is supposed to entirely be technology, as she puts the nails in. And I think like the big purpley explosion, I don't think it's magic. I think that's like, a gender reveal explosion. Like, oh, it's a girl.
Huh. Interesting. Because I guess I just had always kind of thought of it as like, yeah, I guess you might be right. You might be right that there's no magic involved. It just, I don't know, the fact that she draws little guys on the front, I thought there might have been some hocus pocus going on there.
Nah, I just think she's being quirky.
But then she just really sucks at making grenades.
I will say one thing that annoys me a little bit, and I guess we don't have to see it, but she throws the loot off the harbor into the water. Mm-hmm. And the guy, tries to reach, he watches it sink. And then when he looks to kind of confront her, she's gone. A part of me wonders, where she went. Because presumably, if she left, through the boxes or whatever, she probably could have done that with the loot. Are we supposed to assume she kind of just booked it across where she came from?
Yeah, she must have ran back where she came from. And I think the idea is less that she, made a clean escape and more that guy doesn't have any reason to chase her anymore.
Mm-hmm. But eventually we finally get to the cesspool of a city, and it's kind of beautiful in a way. I know we've been talking a lot about just how, good the animation is and whatnot, but once we're kind of shown off the Undercity or whatever it's called, it's disgustingly beautiful.
Yeah, it does have I would say, I don't know if beautiful is the right word for it, but it's certainly got an ambiance to it. I
mean, I feel like there's just tons of moment where we're just shown kind of, the city itself, not focusing on the characters. And you can take a screenshot and use that as a desktop saver. Like, there's just a lot of great, beautiful things here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's beautiful in like the way that painting of was it Kronos eating Zeus, or you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, that's I think we're partly there, though. That painting I don't find particularly beautiful.
That's my point. Is like this city's not really beautiful, but it's certainly got a great aesthetic.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot with the colors and like the kind of deep greens and yellows and whatnot that, to me, it's still like incredibly pleasant to look at. Whereas, Kronos eating his children is not pleasant to look at.
Yeah. But there's like I don't know.
Anyways, eventually we make it all the way to Vander's pub or bar, however you want to call it. And again, we got great development here, specifically in regards to Vander and kind of his role and placement in this society. He's the peacekeeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's kind of he's like the archetypical bartender in a kind of funny way, where it's like he's the bartender, and so like you don't mess with the guy who pours the drinks, but he's not just the bartender for that bar. He's like the bartender for the entire Undercity in a kind of weird way.
And again, it's just great. I'll be honest. I think obviously we're just doing it episode by episode. But Vander, to me, is probably my favorite character. I know he's not in it for the longest, and he doesn't get as many moments as several other characters, but I don't know. Vander just speaks really well to me.
Yeah, I mean, Vander's great. And it's one of those things where, like when watching a show like House of the Dragon, you have to be like, okay, are the writers trying to make me like this character and I hate them, or like am I supposed to hate this character? But here we have many clear examples of like they want you to like Vander, but Vander's a great character and a great guy, so it's really easy to like him. Like there's no problem, there's no dissonance there.
Yeah. He's got his own charm. It's not just that he's a good guy, it's how he talks, how he looks. Like, there's just a lot to him to enjoy.
For sure.
But after he saves, this, loser from getting robbed or cut from a deal, he does a little bit of parenting for his adopted squirts.
Mm-hmm.
And, we get a nice little moment of him just kind of, for the most part, he's scolding them. He's going, "What the hell were you guys thinking?"
Yeah. Which now we're kind of at the point where I'm like, damn, I guess Vander would have probably received a message from the captain of the enforcers. So,
yeah,
maybe Vander would know.
Yeah, I think Vander is more defensible, actually, than the first situation, because, if I'm not mistaken, once Powder yeets the loot into the water, we get like a bit of kind of a time jump, because I think next time we see the group together, it's dark, the moon's up. So I'm guessing that
it can't be that big of a time skip, because it sounds like they're just finding out what Powder did with the loot when we cut back in.
Yeah, I'm guessing it probably took, but I'm assuming it took like a couple hours.
You think a couple hours for them to ask her, "Hey, where's the bag?"
No, I'm thinking it took them a couple hours to like find her.
To find her?
Yeah, because she just ran off without really, like, she wasn't planning on where to go. She ends up in a dead end because she's just trying to get away from the guy chasing her. And so, because of the distance and whatnot, it just takes a couple hours. I think that's more than reasonable.
I mean, she was running for like a minute. She wasn't running she didn't run a marathon.
I mean, it was like at least 2 minutes.
I don't think it was at least 2 minutes.
Look,
fights are pretty short.
Look, listen. When we see her throw the loot into the water, it's sunny. When she's with the group, it's dark.
Yeah, but they're like indoors. They're at like an elevator to go to the Undercity. And also, it was sunset when she throws the bag. I mean, there might be a time skip.
Yeah, they're not indoors, though. Like, they're about to go indoors.
If there is a time skip, then it seems weird that they're just then asking her what happened to the bag. Because I don't buy that it took them hours to find powder after she ran like a couple blocks away. But I guess that's neither here nor there. Yeah. They are. It is nighttime. It's, I guess, probably been a decent amount of time. Vander knows what happened, and gives him a little scolding.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously focusing on Vi, because since she's the leader of the group.
Right. Leader takes responsibility. Also, by the way, I do want to say, I probably could have mentioned this earlier, but I hate Vi's haircut. Who fucking gave her that haircut? I hate that haircut.
I mean, you're not going to ever hear me defend any sort of like half your head shaved styles.
Yeah, it's just...
It's...
Well, I mean, part of it is because it is like the dyke, like strong female character haircut. They put them on everyone. But also it's just like an ugly haircut.
I mean, you're preaching to the choir here. I agree with you that it's a terrible hairstyle, and it's often, I think a part of the hatred is it's often with terrible characters. Like the first one that comes to my mind is the fucking like the animated He-Man show that came out, I think a little bit after that. And yeah, Vi's probably the only character with that hairstyle who's still good.
Yeah, for sure. The only tolerable use. So yeah, Vander is he basically gives her the whole like everybody will listen, everybody does what you say, so you have to take up that extra responsibility. Although clearly at this point Vander doesn't realize the severity of what's happened here.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody does.
I mean, he obviously heard this is happening, and he assumes that they're just going to have to, lay low for a while. And then, once the enforcers arrive, he starts to get a better understanding of just how big of an issue this is. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill, jump in, take some stuff, leave. Crazy shit happened.
Well, yeah, but even when the enforcers arrive, like, I don't think by the end of this episode, anybody has, like, fully realized the true gravity of the situation, So for Vander at this point, he's just giving he sees it as a teachable moment, but
bit of a
ways to go.
Slap on the wrist situation.
Yeah, and he's gonna go try and I guess scrounge up some money, which actually what is he scrounging up money for?
Yeah,
to pay off the enforcers?
Maybe. The crazy thing is, wouldn't you kind of assume that, Vander is, like, obviously not rich, but well off since, he's kind of in charge of the bar?
Yeah, I mean, you'd assume he'd be pretty wealthy by Undercity standards.
Yeah.
It is called Undercity, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, I mean, I don't want to say, like, just because a guy owns a business doesn't mean, he's super rich or anything, because obviously there's expenses that go into that, but there's also the culmination of just how much in high regard he's kind of kept, Like, I don't know. I'd assume he's pretty well off.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect him to have to go selling
Random
random
junk.
knickknacks for pocket money.
Yeah, maybe.
And so he gives his bag of knickknacks to Clagor and heads out, and we get to see Powder digging around in whatever that is. A sewer pipe? Just some big pipe?
Makeshift dumpster, old pipes that they're using for trash now.
I mean, maybe is it a dumpster? I was assuming it was like a pipe for something because she finds like a mouse trap in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that's a mouse trap. I don't know. It's just kind of a tiny little bear trap. And then she notices that she still has a crystal, which actually I think she has a few crystals.
Yes,
I think she's got like 3.
I think it's more than 3, but
More than 3.
I feel like I remember there being like 6, and then she dropped 1.
Oh, did she get all of them?
Yeah, let me go back a bit. She eats the sandwich, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 6, and she drops 1 when she's like pocketing them all.
Okay.
So she should have 5.
Yeah, fair enough. And so she goes inside and overhears Milo and Vi talk. Well, mostly Milo talking. And he's, whining. Imagine that. Imagine Milo whining. And she misinterprets Vi when she says, what does Vi say?
You know what? You're right.
Right. She says, you know what, Milo, you're right. There's a bunch of things Powder can't do. And then Powder leaves. And then Vi goes on to tell Milo he's fucking a twat.
I mean, quite convenient that Powder listens to the part and then leaves before she gets the full context, thus resulting in hurt feelings.
Yeah, pretty convenient. But
it's for like.
But still, it makes sense that like she hears the thing that like because listening to Milo bitch about her, like she knows that Milo bitches about her. But then hearing Vi say anything that could be construed as negative towards her, I could see that hurting her feelings enough that she would walk away.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a cliche. It's a classic cliche, but I think done fairly well.
Yeah, but also it's not so. I don't want to say detrimental, but it's not like a key thing, because it's not long after this happens where we get a very emotional scene between Vi and Powder. Yeah, it's just a setup for one good character moment that happens later between the two of them. Yeah, so it's not the big moment that shatters their friendship, which could have easily been fixed if they just talked it out.
Yeah, for sure. So again, a kind of a classic cliche that you see pretty often, but done appropriately. Which is really the hallmark of good storytelling. Like if you are writing all original stuff or whatever, like that's fine. But if you can use cliches and tropes and archetypes well and pull them off where it doesn't make people groan when they see it, like you're onto something good there.
Mm-hmm. Now, getting back off from that topic, though, we're going to be with Vander again as he makes it to the pawn shop. And, we get some more kind of, cliche moments, but they're just done well. You have, the older generation kind of reminiscing a little bit and talking about they're just kids, but they're growing up and it's only a matter of time until they'll be full adults. And yet they got to make their own way. It's just, it's, we've seen this a million times before, but again, this show does it very well. For sure. I'm still I don't know why Vander's trying to scrounge up pocket change.
I now that the more I think of it, I'm like, what's the point? What's he trying to do? Am I stupid? Are we missing something obvious?
Maybe this is like, kind of a task that he does often. Maybe it's not. Maybe he was going to do this anyways, and this is like not a daily thing, but like every week or so, he just kind of grabs some junk and loot from other gigs and whatnot they've done and sells them. Maybe we're looking at it the wrong way. He's not doing this because he figures he needs to bribe the enforcers. He's just doing this to, it's just kind of like a part of his weekly schedule, like taking the trash out to the road. And also probably to just, talk with, obviously a long friend he's had.
Yeah, maybe so.
But eventually, while he has some great interactions back and forth with this colleague, but we get the enforcers, specifically Grayson and this guy. They say his name in a second. Hold on.
Well, but even before that, we do get a little important tidbit in this conversation where Vander says somebody was following them, not the enforcers, someone on our side. And then he says there's worse things than enforcers out there, which is an important little piece of foreshadowing there.
Yeah, Marcus, that's his name. But, obviously hinting at who will eventually become the antagonist of the entire show, or protagonist, depending on your own personal beliefs.
And is he... I mean, never mind. We don't need to talk about that. So yeah, then skipping ahead to when the enforcers get there, and they also do this really well, where you have like the rookie kind of guy who's like a little gung ho, a little big for his britches, and then you have the more experienced captain who's like, "Come on, let me take care of this." Another cliche, but they do it so well.
That's the thing.
They do it so well.
They take, like, one of the reasons why in storytelling, like, something is a cliche is because it's a very reliable way to tell a story. A cliche is neither good nor bad. It's how you use it. And that's what's great about these writers. They're taking cliches that we've seen, but they're using them to the fullest extent that they're capable of.
Well, and if you would allow me to get a little bit esoteric for a moment, cliches aren't just like storytelling tropes and stuff like that. Like, these are the reason these things keep showing up in stories and in a lot of times in reality is because these are like a part of the patterns that like make up reality. Like, the reason that the captain with the big for his britches, new guy is such a common thing is because it's a pattern that you can recognize in real life. Mm-hmm. And so when you recognize that these patterns, are going to be repeated throughout time, and you accept that and you incorporate them into your stories appropriately, it makes the story feel believable. It makes the story, it imbues the story with the patterns of being, is what it does. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's why I'm saying that's the key to good writing, more so than like constantly trying to do your own thing, is like, if you understand how to utilize the cliches and the tropes, then you can really, really encompass the patterns that make up time and reality.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, so you are, definitely correct about that. And then we really kind of get into the discussion between Vander and Grayson. And, you can see that there's like, they're not enemies by any stretch of the imagination. They're kind of almost allies or maybe colleagues in a way, as they both know what confrontation between these two can bring. And they're both just doing their best to kind of try and circumvent it. And in this case, both of them are kind of, their backs against the corner. Grayson needs someone to be held accountable because of the severity of what happened. Whereas Vander, of course, doesn't want to give up those who committed it because of his relation to them. And he's not the type of guy who's going to give up someone who's innocent.
This is also such a good example of what Hot D was trying to do, done well. Where they kept having, like, they had fucking Rhaenyra go and visit the castle to try and, like, continue negotiating. And it's like, yeah, having the two sides kind of have people who are trying to avoid conflict and stuff can be a really good thing and really cool and really interesting relationship, like we see here. But it has to be justified properly. And of course, here in Arcane, they justify it properly, and it makes these two characters so likable. Seeing them try to avoid conflict, everybody likes people who don't fight.
Yeah. And,
for the most part.
And that's the thing. The situation is believable in that it can be fixed. Things don't have to escalate. Whereas in House of the Dragon, it feels like we're way beyond that. People have already been killed, children even. It's just like, there's no going back now after this. And it's like a contradiction, I feel, because, like, for example, in the final episode of the first season of Hot D, you had Rhaenyra learn about the death of her son, and then she's just, like, staring daggers in the camera. This is supposed to be, when shit hits the fan, there's no going back here. And kind of in a similar sense when, Jacaerys, the kid, gets killed by Blood and Cheese. There's no going back now. And it just seems very inhuman in a way to try and go back.
Yeah, whereas Arcane does what it does better is it actually kind of shows that almost everybody is trying to prevent this conflict, at least all the, like, characters. There's plenty of people who are happy to go start fighting. But there's a lot of forces working to try and keep this from happening, but it's just inevitable. The snowball keeps rolling. Yeah, good stuff.
Amazing stuff, even. And the very next scene we get, we're back over with Powder and Vi having some wonderful sister bonding.
Also, I think before we move on, it's worth mentioning that Echo was spying on them during that whole conversation.
Yeah,
kind of just playing more into him being the one who, like, followed the guy back to his shop and give the kids the information. Like, he's clearly a nosy little kid.
And needs to mind his own damn business.
Yeah, I'm sure him being nosy and informed isn't going to be relevant in the future.
Definitely not. Do you think we can blame him for, like, all the shit that's going to happen? If he didn't, like, snoop and stalk someone, like, everything would have been fine. None of this would have happened.
It's true.
It's all his fault. True. All the death, all the destruction. It's all on him.
It's all his fault. That's why, never mind. I was going to say something racist.
Thank you for holding back. Thank you for not drinking during this recording. But okay.
So yeah, now we're back with Powder and Vi. And it's kind of interesting because Vi approaches Powder to talk to her. She doesn't even know that Powder's, like, upset with her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I guess we pretty quickly find out that Powder's not so much upset with Vi as she is upset with herself.
Yeah, it's kind of like, she's not happy that she's not more useful. She feels like a hindrance, which she is.
Yeah. And hearing Vi, quote unquote, say negative things about her just kind of, I guess, confirmed her suspicions.
Yeah, her self-doubt.
Yeah.
But we do
So
get like a nice little moment where Vi takes her out to the roof and shows her like all the places where they messed up. Everyone, has their moment. Everyone has their day off or their bad day. But what matters is that, you go beyond it, you grow and get better.
mhm.
And we also see, and probably a bit more important to the story overall, we got Powder showing off the little crystals that she still has to Vi.
Yeah.
And
And Vi's like, kind of proud of her for managing to keep something.
and it's their own little secret. Though a part of me wonders, do you think like Vi's the kind of person who wouldn't want to tell Vander about it?
Yeah, at this point, for sure. Because again, they don't know the severity of what happened. Still, they think that they're just gonna lay low for a little bit and it'll blow over, and then it's whatever. They'll get to sell their cool little crystals and make some change.
Yeah, you're right.
If they knew how high up this was going to end up going, I don't think Vi would do that.
Yeah, and also something I just realized, I don't think they know at this point that those crystals caused the explosion.
That's also true.
Yeah, so if they think it's like...
Well, certainly Vi doesn't. Powder could maybe suss it out if she thought about it for a minute. But, yeah, Vi has no way of knowing. She has no clue what caused the explosion.
Yeah, so it's a part of it is like, oh, we just got some loot, pretty crystals or something. Since Powder got them, it can kind of be like hers to keep. We don't need Vander to snatch them and then go sell them at the pawn shop.
Yeah, or to throw them in the water so enforcers don't find them.
So now we get a little bit of a development here as we're jumped all the way to the other side of the Undercity, where we're finally introduced to our more antagonistic forces.
Mm-hmm. And we see the hooligan from earlier in the episode who fought with Vi.
Mm-hmm.
Is...
Yeah, his name's Deckard.
A part of... Sure. I believe you. He's kind of got himself involved in a little criminal underground sort of thing.
Yeah. But it seems what's interesting about this is it's implied that Silco had put Deckard in charge of, keeping an eye on Vi and her group. He wasn't supposed to interfere or try and mug them or anything. He was just supposed to watch them. And I'm kind of interested about this. Why do you think Cisco would want to spy on Vander's adopted kids? Like, I guess I'm sure there is a justification, but I'm struggling a little bit more on thinking up of a justification.
Was he watching the kids specifically, or was he just keeping an eye on people moving between the upper and lower city?
Well, Silco does say you were supposed to follow them, not interfere with them.
You're supposed to follow them and not interfere. You're right. Yeah, I mean, I guess... Oh. No. I don't know. That'll be something I'll have to think about a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, like, I guess it depends on how much he knows about what they were doing up there. Because I could almost see an argument that he's probably, like, the most well-informed on the whole situation right now. Like, he probably has the best idea of what all's going on. And so he might have known that the kids were gonna step on a hornet's nest up there.
I don't know. I think it feels like a little off in regards to him having Deckard, like specifically keep an eye out for Vi and her group. I think it would have been made more sense, like if they had brought Deckard in and Silco was not happy, like, he's short on, the payments that he owes Silco or something like that. And it's with this information that he kind of is able to wiggle out and update Silco. I think that might be a more natural way of kind of for things to play out rather than him having him keep an eye on Vi for no real strong reasons.
Yeah, because actually it does, you're right, in the scene it confirms that he didn't know the kids were even responsible for the explosion up top. So yeah, I don't know why he would. I mean, I guess just looking for, or just trying to keep something to hold leverage over Vander.
Yeah, like I'm sure there is like a justification towards it. Their close connection to Vander, keep an eye on them, might give us some more dirt or info in regards to Vander. Because obviously one would presume he knows where Vander is. It's not like Vander's in hiding.
Yeah, for sure he knows where Vander is. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like the real development of this scene is obviously the purple goo with the rat and the cat.
Yeah, the super soldier juice.
Yeah, pump it up. You get Captain Mouser.
Yeah, where do I get some of this stuff?
Poor kitty.
I've been taking the wrong subs.
I mean, if it's that easy, just a little bit of a sip and suddenly you're superhuman. But yeah, like obviously, I have my nitpicks, an emphasis on nitpicks, and many of those nitpicks are very subjective, and I could easily be turned like they're probably not as substantial. And I know that many of them are not substantial, but it's like I want to be clear: this is a fantastic first episode to this series.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, just the amount of information that they managed to pack into freaking, how long? 30 some odd minutes? 40 minutes almost exactly.
Yeah, almost 40 minutes.
Well, not if you count the opening, I guess. Just an astounding amount of information per scene. It's like I always go back to like any writer that follows Chekhov's gun is doing something right. Like that is Chekhov's gun is such a like I wouldn't say it's an absolute rule necessarily, but if you're following it, if you're making sure every single thing has to be there in order for the story to flow and function, then it's going to be an insanely engaging story. And that's what this first episode is. Mm-hmm. It's insanely engaging.
Yeah, and it does it with like 20 minutes less than House of the Dragon.
Yeah, we're going to be comparing it to House of the Dragon just because that's the only other show we've talked to together like this. But it really should not be compared to House of the Dragon.
I just have to make sure that our videos aren't too positive. We have to have some negativity so that way I can breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, if I'm not bitching, I ain't breathing.
But yeah, this is a fantastic first episode. Not even the best episode, but it does what it needs to do. And I can't wait to talk about all the subsequent episodes that come on next. And I look forward to this being our next series. And when the second season comes, I'm hesitant to be very optimistic, but I cannot wait for it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about like the production of the second season. I haven't been keeping track of it at all, so I don't know. I'm hoping it's all the same people working on it. I hope they haven't had any change ups or anything. It has been a little while. Did you look up when Arcane first came out?
Yeah, so it came out November 6th in 2021. So we're talking 3 years.
3 years? that's not terrible. That's not a terrible turnaround for a second season.
Yeah.
I don't think.
And, it's not too surprising. Often, some series do get 2 seasons, year after year. But that's because, they put, the company was stupid enough to think like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to want 2 seasons. Just look at fucking Velma. Whereas this one, it was a bit more, I don't want to say it was a bit more risky because with how fantastic it is, it shouldn't have been a risk. It should have been an obvious, massive, amazing success, which I'm very happy it is. But maybe because it's, based on a video game and those don't have the best reputation.
Well, and I mean, it was risky. That's the thing about like risks is with like TV shows and movies and stuff is if it's not really good, then it's gonna, like if Arcane had been bad, then it would have been a massive flop. No one would have watched it. Like the only reason, like it had to be at, at this level or at a similar level for people to want to watch it.
Well, it's just kind of a different thing. Like, it's weird. I don't want to call it a risk because I feel like it's so good that it obviously should succeed compared to like other shows that I've seen where it's so bad. I'm surprised that they've decided to have 1, let alone 2 seasons.
Right. But when like a board of directors is assessing the risk of funding a TV show, they're not basing it on like, oh, is this like how good are the writers gonna be? They're like, how good is the concept, or how risky is the concept?
Yeah,
and the concept of Arcane's risky.
Yeah, it is a bit out there. It is a bit of like, even though I don't feel too confused, it is a bit of a wacky, crazy world.
It's a wacky, crazy world. It's a game with a kind of questionable reputation. And I don't know, I mean, I don't, again, know much about League of Legends, but when I think of it, I don't think of like a lore-heavy game that people get really into the story of.
Yeah, I think it, like, this isn't the best comparison, but I think it's kind of like Overwatch. It's more like the game itself is just taking these cool, interesting characters and doing the game itself rather than a story. Like, I think
right. Like,
they all have very deep lore.
Yeah, there is lore and there is a story, but I think like 90% of players are just like, oh, what's the power? What's the ult look like?
Yeah, so it's got deep lore, but it doesn't have a narrative.
Right, and again, I'm just thinking like the player base does not care about. I'm not going to say like as a whole the player base doesn't care about it, but I think in general most players probably aren't that deep into the lore of League of Legends.
Most
just
likely.
A hunch.
I think
throwing wild accusations out there.
I feel like that's a very fair assessment. But with that though, I don't think there's a whole lot more we can say except for good shit. If by some miracle you have not watched this show, please don't listen to our fucking podcast. Go watch it now, then come back and listen, all right? Because you deserve to experience this show for the first time, not from 2 chuckle fucks just talking into their microphones.
Yeah, and I thought about that. We probably should have said that at the very start. But also, we may accidentally spoil future episodes. Like, we'll try to stay on topic of the episode we're watching, but we may occasionally bring in information from future episodes. So I would recommend just watching the whole season and then coming back and listening.
Yeah, and since you kind of brought that up, it actually kind of now made me think, like, obviously we could talk about kind of spoiler stuff that happens, but the more I think about it, it strikes me as those kind of instances being kind of like cliches in their own right. Good cliches, again. As we've said, Arcane does these things masterfully. But it's like, I think most of the stuff that happens in this show, you can kind of see coming until maybe the very end.
I don't know. I feel like episode 3 has some twists in it.
I feel like maybe some, but like, for example, you know what? Let's save that for episode 3.
Right.
Alrighty. Well, to everyone who made it this far, thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes where we cover. And until then, have a wonderful night.